Tyler Schiltz. Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, sir. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Tyler Schiltz.
Mr. Schiltz, if you could angle that microphone a little closer to your mouth. Thank you. Could you spell your last name for the...
Yes, S-H-I-L-T-Z.
Mr. Schiltz, what do you currently do for a living?
I work at a state prison.
What city do you live in?
Cross City. Or no, I work in Cross City. I live in Steinhatchee.
And how old are you here today?
34.
How old were you back in January of 2006?
13 years ago.
What were you doing for employment at that time?
I was in the military.
And who was your mother?
Karina Howard.
Was she dating anyone in January of 2006?
Brian Howard.
Did they subsequently get married?
Yes, at some point in time. I found out later.
Okay. What was your phone number back in January of 2006?
Oh.
I want to ask you a few questions focusing on January 6th of 2006. Do you know what you were doing that evening? January 6th of 2006.
Not specifically, no.
Was there a time somewhere around there that involved a dinner in your honor related to your military service?
Yes, I was about to leave for deployment for a whole year.
Was that in the 2006 timeframe? All right, so my questions are focusing on that particular evening with the dinner for your reference, okay?
Okay.
Where did you go for dinner that night?
To a Mexican restaurant, Azteca, in Crestview.
And who was there?
Be myself, my mom, Karina Howard, Brian Howard, Bobby and Robbie, their daughter Erin, Skylar, Taylor, friend Nicole, Jared.
How did you get to Azteca that night? Did you drive yourself?
I don't recall. I think I rode with somebody.
Do you know Taylor Howard, Brian Howard's son?
Yes, he was my stepbrother.
Was he present at the dinner that night?
Yes.
Do you know how he came to be with your group at the dinner?
I do not.
How long would you say that you all stayed at Azteca?
Approximately an hour.
Do you,
Ate and socialized for.
do you know what time you got there?
I do not.
Do you know what time you left? Where did you go after the dinner at Azteca?
I went to 07 Beacons. I'm in Brian Howard's house.
Who were you with?
I was with my mom, Brian, Taylor, Garrett, and Nicole.
Did all of you get to Brian's together, or were you going separately?
I believe we ended up riding separate. I don't remember who I rode with.
Were you communicating with your mom at all that night via cell phone?
Yes, sir, I did.
What types of cell phones did you have?
I had the Nextel, what they call the Beep Beep, Direct Connect.
And what would have been the reason for you to communicate with your mom by the Direct Connect that night?
We had another friend of mine that was supposed to be meeting with us that time, that was coming over the house, that didn't make it to the dinner.
Did you have any Nextel Direct Connects with your mom while you and she were at the same place?
At the same place?
Do you know what time you arrived back at Brian and Karina's house?
I do not.
Can you describe what everyone did once they were at Brian's house that night?
I know that we were watching movies, playing games. Later in the night, and Brian and my mom went up to the bedroom and were laid down.
Was Brian there while you were there?
He was there.
All right. Those are my questions. Thank you, sir.
Schiltz, my name is Scott Warwick. We've never met, have we?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm just going to ask you just a couple of questions. Do you recall whether or not Alison Holbrook was at the Azteca that night?
I do not.
Was Alison Holbrook living with Brian Howard and your mother at that time? Do you recall?
I do not recall. I was on active duty, back on leave.
And I realize this is a long time ago, and your memories aren't all that great.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that
And
true?
no, but this is the first time anybody's ever asked me any questions the whole time.
No further questions.
Next is Jared Jones.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you face up? Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Jared Jones.
Mr. Jones, what do you do for a living?
I'm CPA,
What city do you live in?
Pensacola, Florida.
And roughly how old were you back in January of 2006?
Probably 17.
Do you recall being present at a dinner with Tyler Schiltz and some other people in January of 2006?
Yes.
I want to ask you about that evening. It was January 6th, 2006. What were you doing that evening?
We were all going to dinner to celebrate. I think it was a birthday.
Where were you going to celebrate?
I believe we were going to a restaurant, a Mexican restaurant.
Okay. Do you remember the name of it?
Don't.
Do you remember whether you went to one restaurant or more than one?
We went to one, and then we couldn't go there, so we went to a different restaurant.
Were they all Mexican restaurants?
Yes.
What time did you arrive at the first restaurant?
Oh, I have no idea.
Do you know what time you arrived at the second restaurant? Do you remember who was present for the dinner that night?
Probably some people. Karina was there. Tyler Schiltz was there. Nicole was there. I was there. Brian was there. Taylor, I think, came. There were other people, but I don't remember.
What time did everyone leave that Mexican restaurant?
I have no idea.
Did you have a phone with you that night, a cell phone?
Probably.
Do you recall if you let anyone borrow it to make a phone call?
No. I don't remember.
When the dinner was done that night, where did you go?
I believe we went to Nicole's mother's house first.
Okay.
We went to Brian's house.
Who all went to Nicole's mother's house?
I know it was me, Nicole, and Tyler.
How did you get there?
I assume we drove. But
Did you drive or did someone else?
I have no idea. I don't remember.
Do you know what time you were at Nicole's mother's house? Did you go anywhere after that?
We went to Brian's house.
Was Brian there?
So
And what did you all do while you were at Brian's?
seemed to played games. I think there were a few other people there, but I don't remember.
Thank you very much.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Would it be fair to say that it sounds like we're talking about events from 13 years ago that you're having trouble, having some memory problems about? Would that be fair and accurate?
Yeah, I think it was way more than 13 years ago. But yeah,
Well, I think that even adds to it, that it was about 13 years ago, okay? But, so your memory is a little foggy on what occurred that night, is that correct?
yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
Okay. Now, but you were at the Azteca, and did you know Brian Howard?
Yes.
And was he at the restaurant? Okay. Did you see him smoke or take smoke breaks at all?
Oh, remember.
I'm sorry?
I don't remember.
Okay. And you don't remember, when you came home, the state attorney asked you, did you see Brian? And you said, I don't believe so. Would that be fair?
I don't remember. I think he was in the bed. I don't remember.
But you don't know that for a fact, whether he was upstairs or at the house at all?
I don't remember.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Next is Nicole Walters. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Nicole Walden. I got married. You probably have me listed as Walters.
How do you spell your first name, please?
Nicole.
And how do you spell your current last name?
WALD.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for using a prior name for you. Was that your maiden name?
Yes, sir.
What do you do for a living, ma'am?
LPN.
And what city do you live in?
Crestview.
Did you also live here in January of 2006?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask you a few questions focusing on Friday night, January 6th of 2006. What were you doing that evening?
Tyler was going to Iraq with the Marines, so we were throwing a party for him. We started out down at La Rumba's. I'm not sure if it was called La Rumba's at that time, but anyway, they didn't have enough room for us, so we then traveled to Azteca. After that, we went to Brian's house to play games.
I'm going to try to take each piece by itself if we can. So you said you went to La Rumba, sometimes called La Bamba, but same restaurant, but you left and went to Azteca.
Yes, sir.
What time did you arrive at Azteca?
We were supposed to meet at La Rumba's at 7, which we did, and they said that they didn't have enough room. And from there, everybody got in their cars, everybody carpooled and drove to Azteca, so it was probably 7:30-ish.
Who all do you remember being part of this dinner?
Probably 15 people. I was there, Jared was there, Tyler, Arturo, Rena was there, Brian was there, Taylor was there. Another one of Tyler's friends named JT. Bobby and Robbie. That's all I can remember.
Does Arturo have a nickname?
Tito, Thudo, last name, Ojeda.
All right. So you got to Aztec around 7:30-ish. How long did everyone stay?
I would say approximately an hour and a half.
Where did you go after the Azteca dinner?
I rode with Jared in his car. It was Jared, Tyler, and I in Jared's car. We stopped by Sonic, the North Sonic, and then for ice cream, went drive-through, and then went to my parents' house, which was on Log Cabin Lane at the time, which is up by the high school. So Tyler could say bye to my parents before he left to Iraq. And when we were at my parents' house, I remember the 10 o'clock news being on, but I don't know if it just started, if it was almost done. I don't remember that part, but I know that the news was on. After that,
1 second. Let me slow down 1 second. Was there any communication that you had with your mom before you came over to her house?
we called to let her know that we were on the way, yes.
Okay. What was your mom's cell phone number?
850-758-7554.
And how did you call her?
It would have been either my cell phone or Jared's cell phone.
Okay, so if we can pick up where you left off, you were at your parents' house, you were leaving there. Where did you and Tyler and Jared go?
To Brian's house.
And what was the reason for going over there?
We were going to just hang out after we ate, hang out with Tyler. We played board games, watched TV.
Was anyone at the house when you arrived?
Karina was there, Taylor was there.
Was Brian Howard there?
Karina said that he was upstairs sleeping.
You said you all were playing games, is that right? All right, thank you very much.
I just have quick questions. So it sounds like you went to different places, but eventually ended up at Brian Howard's house. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And when you went into the house, you saw some individuals, but you didn't see Brian, did you?
I don't remember seeing him, no.
You were just told that he was upstairs, but you actually never laid eyes on him.
Not until the police got him right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alison Holbrook.
Same way.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Fox,
And,
previously for Holbrook.
ma'am, could you move that microphone a little closer to your mouth? You're a little soft-spoken. It's okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hear me?
Hey, Ms. Fox, you said you were formerly known as Alison Holbrook. Could you spell your first name for the court reporter, please?
Alison.
How do you know the defendant in this case, David Russell Holbrook? What name does he go by? When did the two of you get married?
2002.
When did you get divorced?
I believe it was finalized maybe in
Does Russell have any siblings?
yes,
Who?
Michael Holbrook.
Where were you living back in January of 2006?
I was living with Brian and Howard and Karina.
Who else was living at that house?
There were Taylor, Skyler.
Did Karina live there?
Yes.
When did you start living there?
I think it was around Thanksgiving of 2005 is
What was your phone number back in 2006?
I have no idea.
You know what?
Sorry.
It's okay. Do you know what phone company you had, cell phone company?
I think it was Nextel. It was the one that had the radios.
The beep beeps?
Yeah, you could radio.
All right, how do you know Brian Howard? Obviously, you've lived with him at some point with he and his girlfriend, but how did you know him?
I met him through Russell.
Were there any times that you and Russell would spend time with Brian?
I think the best I can remember, we went four-wheeling maybe one or two times. I don't remember exactly how many times.
Would it be fair to say that they were friends?
They got along fine. We didn't hang out with them. We Bobby and Robbie.
Did you know Melissa Howard?
Yes.
How well did you know her?
Not real well. We had taken, she would be at functions where we would take the kids out to dinner for birthday celebration. I know that she was at our wedding. Taylor wanted to come for weekend. Brought Taylor. I think we may have taken the kids to the movies once when Russell would be TDY. I'd have Danielle and something. We'd get the kids together. But
At this point in time, when you were living with Brian Howard and Karina and the kids, was that a time that you were particularly close to Melissa Howard? Would you confide in her or she confide in you or anything like that?
I just saw her that one time that I can recall when she brought Taylor home, and I went out and said hello to her. That's all that I remember.
I'd like to ask you some questions specifically about Friday night, January 6th of 2006. What were you doing that evening?
We had all gone out to dinner for, Tyler was leaving for got together for a going away.
Could you describe for me how you came to be at the restaurant with the group?
Well, initially we were going to meet at La Bamba's, and they didn't. We waited for tables, and they didn't have any tables. So I think then we went over to Azteca, and they had set a table up in the back room. All because I think we had a large party, 13 or 15.
What time did you and the group arrive at Azteca?
Really hard for me to remember exact times. I know I would say 8:30, 8:45, 8:30.
That's fine. You told us you're estimating, so we understand it's been a while.
I take my watch off on Fridays after work.
Yes, ma'am. How did you personally get there? Did you ride with somebody? Did you drive?
I drove. I picked up my son after work, and
Okay.
so I drove.
Where was your son?
He was in Baker,
What's his name?
John Eric Carter.
Was Brian and Karina and Taylor, that whole family, part of the group that was at the dinner?
Yes.
Specifically, when you all were leaving Azteca, could you describe for me the driving arrangements at that point?
Well, my son had left earlier. He had plans already with his friends. And so when we left, Taylor had asked if he could ride with me. We're going back home. Taylor rode with me back to the house.
Did anyone else go back to the house?
I think all of the kids, Tyler and his friends, came back to the house. I don't remember exactly when they got there, but they did come back because they were going to play.
Did Brian and Karina return to the house?
I saw Karina. I heard everybody outside, and I remember seeing Karina, and I think she had told me that Brian had gone to bed.
Were you separate from the group once you were back at Brian's house?
I was, yes.
Hey, what was the reason for that?
I went to the bedroom, got ready for bed, and my stepdaughter had called, and I talked to her for a little while on the phone.
What's her name?
Danielle Holbrook.
And who is her father?
Russell Holbrook.
Do you know what time she called you?
I don't know, maybe between 9 and 10, but I don't know exactly when.
Do you know when she called you in relation to when you arrived at the house? Maybe not an exact time, but how long had you been home before you got that call?
Oh, I think I was only there about 10 or 15 minutes when she called.
And did she call a cell phone or a landline?
She called from her mom's cell phone, I believe. I know it couldn't be too late because Mom was strict on time.
What were you using to talk to her, a cell phone or a landline?
Probably cell phone, I believe.
All right, those are my questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Mrs. Fox?
Yes, it is.
Sorry, I just couldn't hear from over there. Hi, my name is Scott Warwick. You and I have never met before today, is that correct?
Correct?
Yeah. I've just got just a couple of easy questions for you. I anticipate there's going to be some testimony and or some phone records. And I anticipate that it's going to show that the phone call from Danielle to you was about 9:24 p.m. If the records were to show that, would you dispute that?
That sounds probably about right.
And I also anticipate some testimony that Danielle and her brother Ryan had just been dropped off very shortly before Danielle made that phone call to you, meaning dropped off at their house. Would you dispute that?
I have no way of knowing that.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
You may be excused, Judge. Garrett. Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Ralph Garrett.
And Mr. Garrett, what is your position?
I'm employed with the Crestview Police Department, working as an investigator.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
About 38 years now.
Now, I realize you were involved in various aspects of this investigation, but there's a specific area I want to ask you about. And that's regarding anything that you personally collected from the defendant in this case, David Russell Holbrook. Is there anything that you have collected from him?
On May the 24th, a search warrant was executed in Alabama, Huntsville, and we collected buccal swab standards from him.
You said that was May 24th. What year?
2016.
I'm going to ask Madam Clerk to mark this exhibit as State's Exhibit 35. Sir, I'm handing you State's Exhibit 35. Can you tell me if you...
This is a manila envelope that has my initials across the seal, and dated May the 24th of 2016.
Is that exhibit in the same or substantially the same condition as when you collected Russell Holbrook's DNA?
Yes, it is.
Judge, at this time, I move State's 35 into evidence. Investigator Garrett, is the person you collected that buccal swab from present here in the courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
Would you please identify him and point him out and identify an article of clothing that he's wearing?
He's the gentleman sitting, it appears to be a tan or brown colored suit, wears with glasses, defendant's table.
For the record, Judge, he's identified the defendant. Thank you, Judge. Those are my questions for this witness. Judge, may we approach?
For the record, I know investigator here.
May we approach, Judge?
Take about 15 minutes. We'll be recessed for approximately 15 minutes.